Okay, thanks everybody for being here tonight. Thanks also to Joseph Anderson, all the library staff for making this room available to us. Thanks to Star, as always, for being our guiding light here in the poetry community of Logan.
Thank you.
Do we have other thank yous to give? I think that's it. Thanks to all of you. Thanks to Mitch for being here. Thanks to all of you guys for coming. Thanks to Cafe Ibis for supplying the caffeine. Anybody needs that, you're welcome to get some. It's my distinct pleasure to get to be the MC for tonight, so that I get to be the one to introduce my good friend Ben. I'm going to stick to the script to some extent, but I have other things I have to do. I've been told twice now to make sure that you know that this book is available for sale. You can talk to Star in the back or purchase it from Amazon, $15. Yeah. Lots of good stuff in here. And I believe Ben's book is also going to be on sale today, right? So he's got books back there, and I'm sure that he'll sign them and write something that will be significant to you that might change your life. No pressure. In the inscription on the front page. Okay, so we're here to celebrate Ben and the fact that Welcome Dangerous Life was published this past year. And we've done this once before. We had a reading at the USU campus in the library, and you know, it was beautiful because it was introduced by Jennifer, not me. And you know, I have to say that as we were sitting here, my wife says to me, "You're introducing Ben tonight?" And I said, "Yeah." And she said, "But Jennifer's going to be here." And I was like, I know. No pressure on me. Because if you don't know who Jennifer is, she's the person you want to have introduce you anywhere and anything. She says the best things, like you wished your work were as good as she made it sound. And instead, tonight, Ben, you're just stuck with me. I'm very happy. Yeah. But at any rate, at that event, Ben said afterwards that you know all the compliments that they make him feel nervous. Somebody introducing you, like their job is to say, "Oh, this guy's the best. He's great. His poetry's amazing, etc." And Ben said, "Oh, that just makes me feel uncomfortable." So I'm just gonna give you guys a list of all the really bad shit about Ben. All of his bad qualities, right off the top. So here's the list. Like the first and foremost on this list of all of Ben's bad qualities is that this list is like so terribly small. Like he's got no bad qualities. It's so lame. He's like totally failed on having bad qualities. But I don't know. We've got his family here. You got Isaac, Maya, bad qualities. Your dad.
Sometimes he'll get like a little bit too into stuff.
Yeah.
He gets way into stuff. So right about that.
So true. Anything else? We got all night. We can make a list. Okay. All right. So you guys can make your own lists later, but so you know, just as Ben does himself. He always manages to find the silver lining in anything. Like with the two of us in a committee meeting, it's like you've got like both yin and yang. It's like, here's me. Oh, this is terrible. I can't believe we have to do this again. And Ben's like, well, you know, if you think about it this way, this is really an opportunity. So, but just like he is in real life, Ben always sees the good in things. He always sees the silver lining in the dark clouds. His poetry does the same thing. It teaches us to marvel and wonder at the world, to appreciate the miraculous possibilities of any situation, any subject, any object. His poems show us how to be open to all the many various experiences of life, to welcome whatever life has to teach us in whatever way the world wants to present itself. I feel like the poetry does the same thing Ben does. It invites us to be our best selves. Ben's poetry invites us to listen. And I think that's what we should do now. I think we should listen to our friend Ben, read some of his poems. Let's welcome Ben Gunsberg.
Thanks, Charles. Thanks, you guys, for coming out. It's so nice to see friendly faces. Have such a great community here in Logan, literary community, community of friends, and I feel so grateful to be part of it. You know, I actually wrote a poem recently called Best Self, and in the poem, and I'm so mad I didn't bring it, but in the poem, my best self's name is Larry. And it's all about Larry and all the things, yeah. So anyway, that'll be for another day. So, all right, so I had a book. Oh, there it is. Okay, that's good. Usually, I'm going to start actually with a new poem, and I'm definitely going to get to poems from this book. But I see I have some of my kids are here, and my kids' friends are here, and I'm so grateful for that. And so I wanted to read a poem about something that they, I think, have experienced or seen. Have you guys been to baby animal days? Yeah, okay. So the title of this poem is Baby Animal Days. Can you guys hear okay? Okay. All right. Baby Animal Days. When I think of the long journey from a single cell to now, I want to question the mysterious conductor who presides over transformation. Stellar dust to planets, scales to gleaming feathers. How to hold this thumb-sized head, translucent flesh disgorged from shell. Blind, helpless, and beloved by children who peer down through glass onto the birth drama. Their desire to protect chicks trembling in sawdust beneath buzzing heat lamps, I understand. One does nothing better than last long enough to make more, says Darwin. And we repeat, our children repeat, passed down language, survival of the fittest, speciation, the role of mutation. Driving home, we suffer the sudden conversion of fields to freeways. A flock of swallows shape shifts above Walmart. What to call this wild whole that moves like fragments? Here's another new poem, and I'll get to the book. It's called Crisis. Years pass, and we live through things that often involve not knowing when these things are problems. Some small, some life-sized, most out of focus, like sailboats, if those be sails, through history's transparent amber. We're too close, too far. What boom sent so many sheep cascading off a cliff? Reread that sentence. Doesn't it sound like a problem? Or at least the prelude to a pile of sheep found unconscious? One looks like me, tilting his head, breathing twice into his mouth. I am the savior and the saved. Stocks reload, the party resumes. Years pass. I raise myself back into the sky, reversing the graph's plummet until it spikes like a temple. So Charles mentioned this book, and yeah, I have copies for sale for $12 in the back. If you're interested, I'd be happy to sign it. So I'll read a few poems from the first section. It's divided into 4 sections. The first kind of deals with my childhood and my kids. The second addresses issues of money and love. And then I get on to sort of the natural world and animals, and then the final section deals with death. So I'll just kind of go through it chronologically. The first one is called No Storm. Could be a young John Glenn who gazes at the moon as it breaks the barrier of a cloud and forgets the dangers of space travel. Absolutely no sensation of the increasing speed with which a body falls toward the Atlantic. Or a Cousteau who bears the same proportion of water as the surface of the earth and returns to sea happy to drift with lanternfish and bronze eels, unclipped from cables, sheathed by helmeted suit and languid flippers. He sits beneath a solitary palm, waits for wind to ripple the surface, for rain to stage a drummer's revolution. Every viridescent frond, every wood ring poised for renovation. He makes repairs, scrubs the transom. Time to lie on a sun-soaked deck while a jet leaves its powdery trace against the sky. The drinking water has not run dry. He helps himself to pickles and molasses. That's my best self who does that. All right. This is a poem about I lived in a lot of different states growing up, and I lived in a place called Cape Girardeau, Missouri, which is in the boot heel of Missouri, and it's kind of like it's like Huck Finn country, really, right on the Mississippi. And so this poem is sort of reminiscent of my experiences there in middle school. It's called Swamp. Oh, and dip. Do you guys know what dip is? It's like tobacco that you stuff. Delicious, really. Don't do it, kids. All right, Swamp. Where we packed our lips with dip, spread Miss March across our wobbly lust. Her hobby, surfing, fairy-taled in Santa Monica, where boys like us could not exist. Storm-blown boys swaddled in camouflage, rifles cocked, pellets thwapping plastic cups, boys plagued by eczema, cysts, and baby fat, tadpole boys, bloodroot boys, pressure-cooked platefuls of us with nothing to do but sweat and kill croakers until dark, until the butchering sun quit and we tight-roped a steel rail home. By God, sometimes the iron trestle shook and we flopped into a ditch. The L&N passed, that giant one-eyed snake, yellow, red, black boxcars filled with alien freight. The moon too far to shoot, we hopped a split-rail fence into the Holstein pasture, and finally the Dollar General parking lot, where, slumped as sacks of flour, we vowed we'd be soldiers. We'd die together. This next poem is about, you know, the Narcissus myth. Narcissus is the Greek. Do you know it, Maya? You do? Yeah. So he falls in love with himself and ends up dying because he's looking at his reflection. It's a kind of a Greek myth story. I'll explain it to you later. The lesson is don't be vain. Anyway, it's called Narcissus and Narcissus. This white and yellow bloom, oh, Narcissus is also a flower. This white and yellow bloom poses on a slender, hairless stem. His membranous tunic opens to the sun. His eye reflects in a clear spring, youth's dream haze looking back. He has 6 sides, a natural geometry, a damp, sticky surface, his voice tuned by a slight tension. Take away his clothes, and his naked body conveys vitality, a quavering excitement. The tapering arms, pale skin, escape classification. Light shines on his sharp-cut chin. How old would you say? Certainly younger than me, with that ardent body, still in love with that ardent body. Okay. So I was going to actually read the title poem. My son is here, and he says, I hate when you read that poem, Dad. So I'm not going to read it. Actually, I'll do something a little different. I think I'll read a poem. I brought this gear here. I'm now a poet who travels with gear, which is awesome, but also a pain.
You need a roadie.
Yeah, I need a roadie. all poets need a roadie. So we're going to try this. I'm going to try this out and see how it works. The poem is called Captain America, and I've been playing around with recording equipment. I'm on sabbatical, so anyway, I've been playing around with some recording equipment and trying to kind of think about how different sounds outside of the poem can kind of operate in a performance setting. So I thought this would be a good place at least to try this out. So it's called Captain America. You'll hear the epigraph by Christopher Hitchens. He's a late writer, wrote a lot of wonderful books. He was also a journalist, and in this case, this is coming from an interview. He volunteered to be waterboarded to see what it was like. And so this is, the epigraph is from the sort of moment after, where he's talking about his experience being waterboarded. So you'll hear that, and then you'll hear some sounds. All right. Captain America.
Everything completely goes on you when you're breathing water.
Today I learned Defense Department researchers use the sound of falling water to retune brainwave patterns of soldiers suffering from PTSD. Not the bloodthirsty roar of Niagara, but a trickly fountain ruffling the dark, moonless forest. Subjects wear headphones connected to a PC and biosensors that record skin conductance, heart rate, respiration. At some point, the experiment ends and soldiers return to their regular lives, eating hot dogs, carrying babies home from barbecues, making love the way civilians do. They sleep beneath quilts, beneath vaulted ceilings, suffused in the hospitality of fresh paint, like we do. Our children safe and free, loaded pistols entombed in cotton socks. What good is silence on the battlefield if one's emotions are in turmoil? The mind impervious to fear, the Kevlar vest impervious to wind. Impossible to interpret the inner voice and become an instrument of high command if you panic or pump your fist. Less stress for those who hear trickle, fountain. One trusts the sound will douse windswept flames. Trees turn to ash. Ash turns to evening. Evening lifts the ink outline of Steve Rogers back into muscle. Remember Steve Rogers, strapped to a table as scientists prepare the serum that will transform him into a stronger, faster, better-looking man? How he endured in a block of ice for 70 years until the country warmed and woke him from the nightmare of a sidekick blown to bits? Behind his shield, he hides a wet plank and white blindfold. He opens his mouth and drowns those who can't shake loose. So that was that. All right, so I get, this is a poem. This is a poem I've read before, but it's fun to read. It's a poem about going to a conference in Indianapolis and finding out at around midnight that I didn't have a place to stay. They somehow lost my reservation. So when all else fails and you don't have a place to stay, write a poem. Forgiving Indianapolis. Turn this off, actually, so I don't get feedback. Forgiving Indianapolis. I would like to sit with you at Velocity Bar once your shift is up, Veronica. Once you have removed your name from your lapel and hung your Marriott blazer in the employees only closet. We can laugh and forgive Indianapolis for snow in April. We can forgive tall girls blown in from coasts, their volleyball bags, and matching sweatsuits filling the lobby. Forgive volleyball. Forgive the website where my reservation has slipped through a wormhole into another universe. Forgive the other universe. Veronica, my muse of available rooms, walk me down the counter to a working computer and whisper, how sorry, how truly sorry. Forgive tall fathers who have come to watch tall daughters morph into windmills. Forgive these girls, for they deserve a good night's sleep in queen-sized beds before the tournament. Forgive Hilton, Hyatt, and all downtown Indianapolis for filling up. Forgive my layover and late arrival, blue economy class blankets, and the task of luggage. Forgive the corny names of hotel bars, beery winds, and 80s playlists. Wake me up before you go, Veronica. It's almost midnight, and I'm hanging on like a yo-yo. Forgive overhead speakers and solo piano colliding with Wham, as I forgive you, Veronica, for wanting to send me away, for frown and consternation, for the end of conversation. A cab waits to take me to a distant Marriott, $50 from downtown, where I will lie in the dark, imagining how love feels in another universe. This poem is called Self-Portrait as a Mole at the End of the World. I say hawk when asked by our children what animal I would choose. Except nights I fear the end is near. News of chlorine gas, missile tests, drone attacks. Those nights I pick a mole because something soft and harmless should survive a Holocaust. Even if it means shrinking to 1/50th my size and hiding underground until clouds drain their poison and the great fires hiccup smoke and the champion virus dulls its sword. When sweetening roots signal a safer world, I'll surface, break through bone mounds to sniff out grace. Nearly blind, I will not see our crumbling, ant-lacquered street, blue, luminous dragonflies haloing the porch. I'll snuffle through dust, pink feet padding home, where I'll rake my harmless claws upon the mat and cast my small shadow on the bathroom floor, the cold white tiles still intact, shower cap hanging like a dry mushroom on the brass knob. I'll recall with my genius snout Sunday morning long ago, lavender soap, comb pulled behind your ear, parting hair for which I hunt. The old world still wet in my mind, like a robe that draped your shoulders once. This poem, I'm glad I brought the computer because this poem is about a time when my son was learning how to read, and he was recruited to be part of a kind of an experiment, I guess, for a reading program. And so it was often he was still learning to use the mouse, so he'd often just like kind of be moving around the screen and clicking randomly. And so we got very interesting sounds that I recorded, and then I took the recorded sounds and turned them into a poem. So the poem is called Machine Overheard Teaching Boy to Read. And this poem kind of got me thinking about machines more generally. And so after I do this poem, I'll do another recorded poem. Machine Overheard Teaching Boy to Read. What is in the mitten? Click on the question mark. That's right. A question mark shows what is in the mitten. Click on the skunk down by the words, the mitten, rewritten. Go on. Practice reading this page. Click on the rewind button. Repeat. What is in the... Great. Now you can play it back. Click on what? This is not the what. Click on what? That's right. Click on in. Click on in. Click. Correct. Click on mitten. This is what sentences should look like. Click here. This is not the word mouse. A mouse is in the mitten. Which of these words goes in this blank? That's right. A mouse is in the mitten. The sentence should say a mouse is in the mitten. Correct. A porcupine is in the mitten. That's right. A porcupine is in the mitten. You got it. A porcupine is in the mitten. That's right. The sentence should say, what is in the mitten? The sentence should say, click here. The sentence should say, click the pencil when you are finished. Correct. You made a great story. Okay, that's what it was like. Okay. So my daughter's pointing at herself, and she's like, "One about me." And she said, Dad, can I come up there with you? And I said, yeah, you can. You can come on up, Maya. All right. This is my daughter, Maya.
Hi.
You want to entertain while I do this? Let's find a file, open recent, and Ancestors of Gospel. So Charles was sort of joking when he saw that I had brought the computer, and I said, yeah, I have some poems on the computer, and he said, you would be awesome. He said, you should just go up there and just press play and stand there. So actually, that's what I'm going to do for this poem. You might want to close the door. It's got a bit of a beat to it. I play music with some friends. Charles is he's the bassist, and rock, and get together and play. Anyway, I started playing around with recording technology, and I thought, well, I might as well see if I can combine some of my interest in music with poetry. And so it was a really interesting experiment for me around writing poems, really, because this was a kind of poem, but it was really different from the kind that I write for the page. And so I'm going to stand here. I might dance. I don't know what I'm going to do. I wasn't sure, but here's the poem. Wait, don't you do it? Okay. Okay.
You turned the amp off earlier.
Oh yeah. Thanks, Charles. All right. Let's see how it goes. You want to hit play? Yep.
I'm here. Yes. I'm here. Yes. The ancestors. The ancestors.
Before the world tonight, I give praise our ancestors who built this country.
Wait.
Yes. I'm tempted to break horses with the ancestors. Break. Yes. I'm here. Yes. Follow me. Follow.
Before the world tonight, I give praise our ancestors who built this country.
Caribbean Ocean. My ancestors that jumped from the ships. Ancestors have seen enough dark omens to doubt the sparkling future of autonomous vehicles. Yes. How the metaphors have changed. Follow. How? Follow.
Before the world tonight, I give praise our ancestors who built this country.
How?
The ancestors are there to help us get in line with our destiny and purpose.
The underworld is boring. I'm here. Yes, here. The underworld is boring. The food is bland. And there are no film festivals.
So anyway, that was that experiment.
I love that Maya just knew to like get out of the way when you started to dance.
She knows what's up. Sweetie, thank you.
Can I stay?
Sure. No, actually, watch this.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. I'm going to read a couple more poems, and this poem is called Twin Days, and it's about the largest annual gathering of twins in the world. It happens in Ohio. Twin Days. There and there, a pigtailed pair who share the same vulnerability to glaucoma. Two more matched tie-dye shirts, Cruz Brothers Car Club hats, duplicate nails, diapers, flip-flops. Thousands converge in Twinsburg, Ohio, every August in Twinsburg, Ohio. The FBI scan irises, freckles, overbite, even advanced facial recognition software fooled by small changes in lighting. Scientists, too, pitch white tents. Ask Rob and Ron to sip juice from tiny cups. How's it taste? How's it taste? Thanks to twins, they calculate height at 80% heritable, IQ at 75%. Perhaps two alike, two like eugenics, eugenical, I think, reading now about two couples raising identicals 200 miles apart. Mothers say both took first steps March 8th. Same lazy eye, same mean streak. Okay, so two more. This poem it's kind of a Michigan poem. Growing up in, well, actually, high school in Michigan. But anyway, I used to go up north, the Upper Peninsula, had a strange experience up there where someone drowned and we had to pull the body out. So this is sort of, I guess, actually, we saved her. Yeah, we saved her. Yeah. So yeah, we gave her mouth to mouth for about 40 minutes. And yeah, it was a very strange experience. It's called Aftermath. Drunk, barely able to walk, Alan turns the shotgun on Superior, daughter killer. Pine and sugar maple line her shore like escorts bowing for a waltz. Her water body dazzles blood on dusk. Eyes shut, he shoots and feathers plume against the drooping sun. A harmless loon he should have missed, like broken apple skips and sinks. Two more shots slap the lake, and he sees her, dead 1 week, rise in smoke above the double barrel. Empty boat that took her out looks glum, oars locked, limp rope tied to dock. When the final shell is spent, he drops the gun and runs the driftwood bank toward her dark expanse. How quickly cold disarms him. And last poem, it's called, actually, maybe I'll do, instead of this one, I'll do this one, actually, it's a new one. It's called The Man Before You. The man before you maintains he's no prisoner while walking near a clear and slender river, because nature is the antidote. Water streams over stones, evaporates, and condenses into objects of his longing. Down comfort, mule-eared tobacco plant, girl with the jar at her hip. He knows you know nature was the antidote 2 centuries ago. Does not the same cloud stretch between centuries? Does not the same gold underwrite international trade? He's buttoned up in a linen shirt and cropped riding coat. His gray breeches tucked in boots rimmed with tassels. He wears kid gloves and carries a tall, conical hat. Maybe that's a megaphone. He reverberates through crystal flutes, iron cuffs, silver trade, tartar, for dessert, bomb pops, and whipped tort. He bequeaths a college with his name, a private zoo where sons raise sons on shoulders to afford a better view of lions swallowing you, and you. That's a terrible poem to end on. That's like
Read another one.
kill the audience. Lions. No, we can't end with that. Okay, we'll end with a more optimistic poem called Hoedown for Duelists. Body and soul being the dual entities talked about here. Just separate body and soul into square dance lines and watch yourself do-si-do down the aisle. Body to the right, soul to the left, the great barn of being bittersweet with sawdust and manure. Sway soul, sachet body, so delicious with pheromones and DNA. Raise the dead who lie in the hay. Witness a lamb grazing on weeds beneath the great barn's roof. Pray, Lord, protect us from rain. There's old Lazarus staring down at his gray bicep. There's old Li Po tipping back his jug of wine, thinking, what a big dream, this life in the world. Pray, Lord, let me learn the step and let me pass without breaking somebody's nose. Calling out more do-si-dos, ace of diamonds, jack of spades, meet your partner, promenade, and a body acts on instinct and a soul throws amber light upon your lips and spine. A swift revolution, this living, dying, day after day, less than perfect chain. All join hands, circle to the south, put some moonshine in your mouth. And a tongue sneaks out of its sweat lodge for a sip, and the caller calls, shoot the star, box the gnat. Step forward and do a left face U-turn back under the raised joined hands as your body walks forward and around your soul while doing a right face U-turn back. End facing each other, your mind in the starting position, against oblivion. Thank you.
So, as usual, tonight we have open mic, and so if you want to read something, there's a sign up in the back. We'll have just a few minutes where you can very quietly slip back there and sign up, while maybe we have a few minutes for questions for Ben. So,
Yeah.
sign up in the back for open mic and
Yeah.
fire away.
I did some weird stuff. Come on, you got to have some questions.
How long have you been working on this set of poems?
This, the book?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I mean, some of the poems, I mean, maybe two have been with me since my MFA days, which I, two of the poems probably from in my 20s, which was, 20 years ago maybe. I wrote an MFA thesis, but, it didn't become the book. Most of the poems were written in the last, since I've been here, so yeah, the last 5 years or so. But yeah, whittling away at it, working, I've been working on it, I guess, since I started writing poems, which is a long time. It can take a long time. Yeah. Other questions? Yeah.
So how do you go about juggling the aspect of with your music and poetry, blending the two? How do you juggle the message of the words, matching with the beat? How do you juggle all those factors?
Yeah, this experiment was, I was sort of thinking about that, and that's why I did this. Like, what are the differences? What happens when you start trying to combine the two? Does it become too much of a song? What I found is that I'd actually written a poem about the ancestors, which is kind of what the poem is. And the reason I took that bit from Spike Lee is because he talks about in his acceptance speech of his Academy Award, he talks about the ancestors. I was like, oh, I should get that. So I snagged it. And what happened is the poem that I'd written, which was kind of long, totally fell apart. I couldn't just read it and record it and put music behind it. That seemed silly. So I started breaking pieces of words apart and thinking about it more sort of compositionally, and putting in sound effects, and it's kind of like writing poems is complicated enough. So the added element of thinking about percussion, bass lines, it's mind-boggling. It's really fun. When Maya said, you know, he gets really into stuff. Like, you know, picture me in my room with the headphones on, like, you know, trying to, you know, get things just right on so they're coming in on the beat. And so I would say it just adds a level of complexity that is interesting and fun to do and to work with, but also and takes you out of your maybe usual ways of doing things. It's kind of cool, but it also it can be really sort of hard because I don't have a lot of. I mean, I play music, but I don't sort of arrange the way that I was thinking about arrangement here. So yeah, I'm just new to it.
With the way that began, the bass line was really prominent. Would you say that the bass is the most important instrument?
And bassists are the most important people.
Right. And did you play that yourself, or are you like out running around on me?
No, I'm out running around on you with GarageBand loops. Yeah. A lot of those sounds and effects were like stored. They were electronic, so I could loop them. And so I didn't actually play any instruments. I mean, you heard my voice on there occasionally, but I didn't actually play any instruments on that. It's all. I mean, there's like thousands of these sounds that you can go and play with, and that's dangerous for a guy like me because I'll sit there all day and just like, what's that one sound like? Oh yeah, let's throw that in a poem. Why not? You know? Yeah, it's fun. But there's something really nice about a poem on the page. So I guess my first thought was, you know, poetry readings have a sort of rhythm to them and an arc to them, and I thought, oh, maybe I'll do something different, just to keep it kind of lively. And so I think performance was in my mind as well. Like, how can this be a little bit different? Break things up. Yeah, Mai?
I was wondering, kind of like with like the words for your poem, do you think that they just kind of like come as you, or do you need to like really think about like what word would fit and stuff?
I think about what word fits. I think a lot about that.
Well,
So.
Yeah, but like, does it like with every single word, or like?
No, sometimes they come really quickly and easily, and then other times, so sometimes I'll write and I'll have a word and I'll know the word is wrong. And I'll write WC by it, or I'll label it word choice or something. I know it's wrong, but I got to keep moving. So I want to keep moving forward. So I'll go back to that word, and then I'll write words like in the margins, like sometimes a pile of words on top of that word to find the right one. But sometimes a word doesn't feel right to me, but I want to keep moving on. So those times I spend a lot of time thinking about. Some words I spend a lot of time thinking about. Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, Jean.
When did you start writing this? What age or interest in it, I guess?
Yeah, when a girl broke up with me in college. Yeah, I think so. I got interested in poetry. Or that's still, no, but I was always interested in writing and words, and so I got interested in poetry earlier than that. My dad wrote poems, and he had lots of poetry books. We had lots of books of poems in the house. So it was always sort of part of my life, but I didn't really think about writing them until I was hurt. But you know, my old professor Bruce Smith said he would have us actually write. He had a questionnaire when we started his class, and the question was, "What hurt you into poetry?" And it's like what Auden says of Yeats, "Mad Ireland hurt you into poetry," and so he's borrowing from that. And I think that a lot of poems, or at least poets, get started with some strong emotion. Isaac.
Why didn't you want to read the book at the very beginning? For the first poem.
The first poem in the book?
The title poem.
The what?
The title poem.
Oh, the title. Oh, I thought you said you didn't like it when I wrote it.
I don't know which one it is.
Oh. We're going to read the title poem when we get home. It's Welcome Dangerous Life, the one about when you were born.
I never heard it.
You never heard that one? Oh. I'm living in an alternate reality. Like I said, I really get into stuff. Any others? I want to hold up the open mic. Well, thank you guys again. Yeah, appreciate it.
So much fun, everybody. All right, it looks like we've got. Okay, looks like we have about 9 people. And I think maybe what works best is that we'll do groups of 3. So our first 3 poets this evening are Audrey, Paige, and Aya. So why don't we have Audrey, Paige, and Aya come up and read us. One at a time. Yeah. I'm sorry, that wasn't clear.
Standing there like.
Can each in turn, let's have Audrey, and then let's have Paige, and then let's have Aya come up and read.
I like your blue hair.
Thank you.
Okay, hi, I'm Audrey. So I've never read my poetry before, but I'm like jazzed on coffee, so let's do it. So this poem is called Subaru. I've watched you grow up, from when I was gifted to your sister when she was 16. Some mornings you get mad at her for sleeping through her 7th alarm, making you late for school. She would purposefully hit the pothole in the middle of the school parking lot just to piss you off. I watched her stress as you took the wheel. I watched you two smile as you shared music through the cassette player connected to the aux. One day your sister didn't join you, and you hung up a tassel that said 2017. You barely smiled anymore. You shaved your head. You didn't talk much, and when you did, you swore more. Sometimes you gripped the wheel harder with tears in your eyes, glancing to the other lane more than usual. Once I thought you actually would let the wheel keep straight as the freeway curved ahead of you, but you started crying instead. I think you thought about her, your music sharing buddy. Sometimes at 2 in the morning you drive him home, then let the tears silently fall. Sometimes you make it home, sometimes you wouldn't before you broke. Then you took the 2017 tassel off, and Mom and Dad cried as we left the spot where I had been for 4 years. Now you take us to the mountains. Sometimes they'll join you, sometimes by yourself. But you don't seem lonely anymore, just blissfully alone. I've watched you grow up.
Star, do we have until 8:30?
8:45 at the long.
Okay, so everybody has about 3 minutes. You don't have to take all 3 minutes, but about 3 minutes. 4 minutes? We don't have time, we don't have to, for 9 people times 7 is not possible. Thank you for the hand gestures.
So this too is my first time sharing my poetry, and they're all within various degrees of revision at the moment. So the first one is called The Life of Death. Like a specter rising from the crypt, death awakens from failing light. He saunters out with scythe in hand, his duty locked in his grip, and desolation in the abyss of his eyes. He stalks his victims and drags them to their fate. But does the world know the curse is calling, that curse, that dreaded curse he's forever bound to? The loneliness, the despair of always taking and never giving. He rises in the shadow of night and cowers with the failing light, banished to a lonely world and trapped by the call, his duty that claimed the light in his eyes long ago. And then this other one is called TikTok. I am a wristwatch, a keeper of time, a master of time. But I lay on my master's wrist, the god of my life. I lay hidden from the world in the shadowy abyss of his sleeve. Only when he beckons me do I get a glimpse of blinding light. The warmth, the colors, all without the reach of my hands until he calls upon me. I stretch and turn with the hope of reaching forbidden light. No victory. I tick away day after day, around and around I go, like children on a carousel. Though they laugh and screech, my only sound is the tick-tock of my life. That tick-tock. How many do I have left? I'm the master of time, and yet I don't know the end of mine.
Okay, I think this is my last announcement. I'm not going to do this all night. But we are being videotaped. And if you don't want to be videotaped, you should let us know before you start reading your poem. Just say that you'd prefer not to be taped.
Okay, hello. I'm Aya, and it's been quite a while since I've been up here. I stutter when I'm reading aloud sometimes, which is, not very great for a poet, but it is what it is, one of my many quirks. All right, so this is a new poem that probably needs some explaining. It's called In Which Hugin Has Fathered Children. And it features Hugin and Munin, who are the 2 ravens of Odin. They bring him knowledge, and they also count his the dead. Another reference in here, which I might need Eric's help in, my husband is the Hurva Synagogue in Jerusalem, which was a structure that was there, and then it was destroyed in the '67 war, correct, in Jerusalem by the Jordanian army. Am I right in here? You read the books.
Yeah, her dad wrote his entire dissertation on this. He's a professor of architecture. It's the synagogue that never was. The old synagogue that was gifted to the Jewish community in Jerusalem in the 1800s was destroyed in the '67 war.
And then it was destroyed, and then they had several people try and rebuild it, including Helicon, who designed this incredible thing that was never built because it would be too grand and resemble too much the
the traditional, the Orthodox Jewish community resisted it because it would have been the third temple. And they said, you're not the Messiah, you can't build the third temple. And so it's this design that never was built, but yet changed architecture.
So there's that, and then the last reference that I think you might not know is Rabi al-Adawiya, who was this Sufi mystic basically in 11th century Arabia, and who lived in the desert and prayed naked and was just a very compelling figure to a lot of people at the time. Okay, so this is in which Hugin has fathered children. When he's not teaching, he browses headlines, typing with only 2 talon-like fingers, as though centuries later he hasn't quite gotten the hang of being human. In hushed tones on Skype, he waits and counts the heroic dead with Uncle Moonin, whose Syria is burning now, who lives in London, and both have long developed a distaste for blood. Why would a creature of the sky choose to teach architecture, the art of permanent grounding? I linger at the edges of large auditoriums or accompany him to exhibits and watch students flock around him. Their eyes follow his hand extending, his fingers letting go, as he explains the journey of the Hurva Synagogue, not the rebuilt relic, but Khan's that never was, and Jerusalem's lost Moroccan quarter, now only the vacant plaza of the Western Wall, spaces translucent, shimmering on the horizon of almostness, untouched, touched, empty spaces with old sky. Do they remind him of Valhalla's halls? I've seen that charm too, in his leaning over the edge of my childhood bed, arms flapping to the rise in his voice as he narrated his gold-spun tales, sprinkled with impossible details, stolen from the heavens. How Joan of Arc's hair blew in the wind, or which flowers adorned Nissa wal Koyoto's garden, or how the sand refused to pierce Rabi'a's knees and elbows as she knelt before God in the desert in wild withdrawal. And then I've got a broken ghazal, so it doesn't quite follow the exact rules of a ghazal mostly, but I mean it does. So broken ghazal, 7 hijabis. Fabric enfolds you hair to elbow, respects your mother's modesty. And fabric like ties unveils strand and sinew, reclaims your modesty. You followed a truth like a threaded needle, under fabric falling fringed, a heart contented, alhamdulillah, for the gift of modesty. You forge a crown that frames your face in the face of those who say you can't and do not have to, unapologizing in your modesty. Your unloosed curls glow in the new sun, a twisted rope ladder to God, and a prayer springs back out of your heart, your faith defying modesty. Turban pulled back past your hairline, crossing the line of what's allowed. For balance, a little bit of sin, you say, flirting with God's will, coaxing modesty. You offer your bare face and closeness to God, plainness reclaimed with scarfless clipped back hair and looser silhouettes, touching modesty. Cloth your skin, ever transforming, a kaleidoscope of scarves and sleeves, fashion your cloak, staying one fold ahead of resenting modesty. And you there, like Abraham in Babylon's fire, how does your faith glow brighter? Light upon light, perhaps you will lead us, craving modesty. Thank you.